me turn my talk. Here we go. How he said he living life as a gringo. Where you question where you fit in every time you mingle. They say you do this with not enough that. My rapping is really bad. This life as a gringo.
Yes, hello and welcome to another episode of Life as a Gringo. I am Dramos, of course, and it is Thursday, so that means it's time for our Thursday Trends episode update here from the greater New York area. It is fucking cold. It is brick outside. It's 25 degrees, I think, right now outside. I am freezing my ass off. I got the heat up in the studio, and still, it's like this just bone-chilling cold that is taking over right now. Yeah, like having a good outfit on has gone out the window. I'm just with a hoodie. I just need to warm up somehow, some way. Mentally, though, I'm in Puerto Rico, but we will get into that later on in the episode. Of course, I'll just start there. For our Mi Gente segment, somebody doing a positive thing. El Conejo Malo, Bad Bunny, put out a new album, and just like chef's kiss, perfection. Just amazing. Puerto Ricans around the world rejoicing, Latinos around the world rejoicing, music lovers around the world rejoicing. Just beautiful. Perfection. But we'll get into that. And on the serious side of things, man, we're going to talk about these fires that are happening right now in the Los Angeles area in California. Just absolutely devastating and just so fucking sad, man. We'll touch base on that. We'll talk about our boy Trump. The election results were certified. Nobody rioted. Democrats did not line up and storm the Capitol. And yeah, he's been talking some wild talk that doesn't seem to be helping anybody else, but Trump be trumping. And then there's this crazy story out of Puerto Rico where a Missouri woman, tourist, set fire to 3 businesses for no good reason whatsoever. Some drunk tourists. We'll talk about that. So yeah, let's just get into it, man, in our For the People in the Back segment.
Say it louder for the people in the
All right, let's start in Los Angeles. There's not much to say here other than it's just so sad. You have thousands of homes burned in the Palisades area of Los Angeles. It's been spreading. I have friends in, I guess, the Hollywood area who were evacuated. 5 people have lost their lives. More than 2,000 structures have burned. At least 130,000 residents are under evacuation orders because of the wildfires that are burning right now. And you had the Los Angeles Fire Department chief, Kristen Crowley, saying we are absolutely not out of danger yet. The winds that are happening right now are exacerbating the situation and allowing the fire to spread even further. But it's already being reported that this is, in fact, the worst fire in Los Angeles history. And when you watch the news and you hear people talking about how they just lost everything in these fires, and just the footage, it's sad. Like, your heart goes out to it, and it almost feels empty to like talk about how your thoughts and prayers are with these people. But I think we're all in watching and witnessing the footage and the aftermath of it all, even though it's still ongoing. You can't help but just be so sad for everybody going through it over there. I can only imagine, I know what it was like when we had a hurricane here in New Jersey, and I had some damage to my property, and I watched as like the town where I bought my first property was just decimated by this. But even with that, and that was tragic, and that was just like depressing and hard to kind of exist for a few days. or a few weeks or whatever, and however long kind of this town was a shell of itself. But this fire is even worse than anything I could ever imagine. So truly just a tragedy. I'm at a loss for words for it. I bring it up because it's obviously a huge story, and rightfully so, and we need to acknowledge it and talk about it. But it's these are those moments where you just feel kind of like helpless, and you're just like sitting here just sad about what other human beings are going through. And just tragic, man. And as empty as it might sound, my heart genuinely goes out to anybody who's affected by all that going on. As you know, just want to touch base on that. Had some other news that is like almost sounds like a skit. It actually was a skit, if I'm not mistaken, on by Stephen Colbert when he was with The Daily Show. But Donald Trump has just been like on one. He's not even in office yet. As I mentioned, the election results were certified. There was not a storming of the Capitol. As you can see, things are a bit different when one side wins and the other side loses. Donald Trump has been saying all kinds of wild shit, like making Canada the 51st state, talking about taking over like the Panama Canal and Greenland, like all these wild things. Then on, Tuesday, he had a press conference at Mar-a-Lago and was talking about him wanting to rebrand the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America. And this is what colonizers do. This is straight up out of the colonizer handbook, right? The colonizer textbook, is to meddle in shit for no reason whatsoever, to think they have ownership over random things. It is like the white supremacy, right? The idea of white superiority. Although ironically, the idea like America doesn't just represent the United States of America. Like, and I'm not saying this to make a case for him. I'm saying this to make a case for the stupidity of like Americans in general, who don't understand that there's like, North America, South America, Central America, right? Like it's not, America doesn't just mean the United States of America, but whatever, America. And it's just like, they don't even try to hide their racism. I've said that so many times, but it's like, this fucking PR stunt because it'll excite his base and like deter them from realizing he's not doing anything about the things that they claim they voted for him for. And because many people are racist, the idea of like being associated with Mexico, or the idea of like sticking it to Mexico, of course sounds amazing to these fucking idiots. Like, it's crazy. You actually did have the Mexican president, Claudia Sheinbaum, give a little clap back, saying that the U.S. should actually be called, quote, Mexican America. And she also showed off on a 1607 map with the Gulf of Mexico being identified as such and North America being labeled as Mexican America. The Gulf of Mexico has been known as that for centuries. Trump could go about trying to change it. You had the psycho that is Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene proposing a bill that would federally fund the required changes to the maps. And this is just like on a basic context here. Is this the best use of elected officials' time? They're drafting a bill for this nonsense, and then being okay with spending federal money, the money required to fund the changing to maps, rather than literally doing anything that would affect the lives of the American people, of the people of the United States of America. Like, what Nobody, like, and I've seen, like, Republicans in the comments, like, Democrats like changing names all the time. What's the big deal? It's like, bro, this whole election was like economy and everything's too expensive and we're being ignored and people aren't doing enough to help the everyday person. And this motherfucker is leading the way with, we're going to change the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America. How the fuck is that helping you lower grocery prices? And then that crazy lady of Marjorie Taylor Greene wasting time drafting bills for that. How about you draft a bill that helps the people who put you in office? But I'm the crazy one. It's just fucking wild. Anyway, the renaming of this whole thing is not actually up to, Donald Trump and all these things. There are like borders within the Gulf of Mexico that the U.S. technically owns part of it, but not the entire thing. It's a whole. The fact that I'm even wasting time talking about this is just fucking ridiculous. But here we are. Stay woke, stay alert to the nonsense that is going to be the next 4 years. It hasn't even fucking started yet. That's the crazy part. It hasn't even started yet, and it's already just like, what the fuck is going on? Like, it's already turning into just a weird skit that unfortunately is not a skit. It's just real life and the reality of the world we live in today. And by the way, quickly, there was so much blame being put on like Democrats and Biden, the economy, and people can't afford to live and all these things. And people really do exist in a bubble. And don't talk about the fact that this is literally a global issue. And I'm not justifying it. I'm not saying politicians have done enough. I critique them all the time. I critique Democrats on here all the time. But in Canada, they're literally the same exact argument is happening. You had Justin Trudeau, who's the prime minister, which is their president, essentially announced that he's going to be stepping down. And many Canadians are calling for that because they're struggling economically and making a lot of the same arguments that people here in the U.S. were making about finding it hard to be able to afford the cost of living, essentially. And similarly over there, taking a page out of Trump's book, they do have a radical, crazy person, far right, that is threatening the Progressive Party of Canada, essentially, and has a shot at getting into power because people are so fed up with struggling. They're just looking for any change. And I saw this on the news, and I thought it was an interesting kind of point. They were talking about how we're seeing this around the world, that basically whoever is not in power has the upper hand because they can claim that they're going to bring change, and they can claim or place blame on the powers that are in charge currently, even if it's fucking bullshit, stuff. And unfortunately, again, I've talked about this, people are not making smart decisions. They're making decisions out of emotion and half-truths and social media posts, but they're tired of struggling. And again, you place blame on every single person who holds a political position. I don't care if it's Democrat or Republican. Unfortunately, the world as a whole, for the most part, has been bought and sold by the wealthy elite. And they've been squeezing us and bleeding us dry for so long that now it's like there's not much meat left on the bone. Now we're really feeling the effects of extreme greed and extreme capitalism, right? And that's what people are really feeling now, why they're so angry. We've gotten to the point of it being so extreme as far as like how the cost of living has increased while people's salaries have not increased along with it. So now people are really feeling the effects, and more people are feeling it at where it's like, unless you're one of the really wealthy elite, everybody's hurting. Even those who make six figures a year are feeling the effects of this. And that's what we're seeing, a rebelling against that. And unfortunately, when people don't sort of search for, or read deeper into it. They're just going to blame the first person, the first boogeyman that is presented to them, and they're going to make decisions based upon sort of these half-truths that inevitably seem like they're going to lead us down an even worse path with somebody like Donald Trump, who has made zero mention of how he plans on actually helping the everyday person, but has made all kinds of crazy fucking statements and plans that are just sounding very much like a dictator and not somebody who cares about the everyday person. But here we are. With that said, we'll take a quick break here, and then we'll touch base on a really just disgusting story out of Puerto Rico with a American tourist. But we'll take a quick break, and then we'll be right back. All right, so this next story was going viral here. We're back, by the way, obviously. It was a story about a fire that broke out in Cabo Rojo, Puerto Rico. That's on the west side of the island, where you had like 3 businesses just completely get burned to the ground. Another one was damaged, and all caused by a disgruntled tourist. And I laugh because it's literally just like such a ridiculous situation that escalated to this point. You had a Missouri woman who was being suspected of starting a fire that damaged businesses in Cabo Rojo, Puerto Rico. The fire started on January 2nd and damaged Marinera, Bar Marea, and Artesanía Havia. These some names, boy. Authorities believed that the suspect had left the country, which she did. Now, there was a video that captured the interaction with her prior to burning everything down, and then this idiot was even caught on camera carrying gasoline. But the video that went viral was a woman who appeared intoxicated. She seems to pass out at the bar. Police intervene and remove her. Seems like a straightforward moment of expelling a patron who had too much to drink. Another moment in the video shows the woman returning to the bar hours later to confront the establishment's employees. In the final scene in the social media video, it shows a woman setting the businesses on fire and walking away carrying a gas can. Some believe the woman who set the business on fire was the same person who was told to leave after getting intoxicated. There are other reports claiming that the woman was combative with other patrons. Some even shared that she assaulted a waitress working at the bar when they asked her to leave the premises. Now, I'm referring to like an original article written about this. There's obviously been updates since then. Allegedly, the gasoline that she got was given to her from the Airbnb that she was staying at. Puerto Rico had a massive blackout on New Year's Eve. So I guess they gave her or left her with gasoline to put into the generator for the apartment she was staying at, and she then just took that gasoline with her to light this building on fire. Now, since then, federal authorities executed a search warrant. This happened on Tuesday in St. Louis. In connection with that investigation, the ATF, the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms and Explosives in St. Louis are helping authorities in Puerto Rico conduct an arson investigation. Now, no arrests have been made. There is a video of her being escorted out of her home in St. Louis by the ATF as they acted on the search warrant. I guess they're looking for evidence in her house of her committing the fire, even though there's video evidence. Authorities in Puerto Rico said they are close to charging the suspect with the incident in which security cameras caught the tourist suspected of setting the fire. Puerto Rico's largest newspaper, El Nuevo Dia, reported Tuesday all of this information, and they said the charges could come as soon as this week or next week, and that was said by Lieutenant Miguel Rivera Sepulveda of the Mayagüez Police Department's Explosives Division. So, yeah, this fucking crazy drunken lady decided to set fire to these people's businesses because she was drunk and was asked to leave. And now these people are without their businesses, their way to make money. It's just, I don't want to get into, talk about white people. I don't want to But what are we doing? What are we doing, white people? Not all. Listen, I want to make sure, not all. But again, the colonizer rationale, man. Like, obviously this person is like unwell in so many different ways. But I can't help, through life experience and just observation, feel like this is also a mindset that has been unconsciously passed down generation to generation, that allows you to believe you can go to another place and that they are lesser than you. And we've seen stories like this all the time. Remember in Mexico, you had the people climbing up the pyramids and all that stuff. And there's been all types of bad stories out of Puerto Rico when it comes to tourists. But it's this American colonizer, often white supremacist mindset that makes you think you are better than, and you can go do whatever the fuck you want to do. And then on top of that, this asshole probably thought because it's Puerto Rico, she could just leave the island and she's good to go. And nothing's going to happen to her. All because you don't know how to handle your alcohol. And not for nothing, there's a lot of conversation because there are a lot of people in Puerto Rico who don't want so much tourism on the island, who have a problem with quote-unquote gringos, right? And it's because of stories like this one, right? It's not just out of thin air. They're not born, it's not like, everybody just hates white people. It's the experiences that they've had that have shaped their now disdain, but I would say caution when it comes to outsiders. When you have enough bad experiences, this is probably trauma, passed down even from the Latinos and Columbus and shit. But like, when you have enough bad experiences, yeah, of course, you're going to rail against people who come in there and disrespect the place that you call home. And stories like this just add fuel to that fire. And they're disgusting. It's wild. It is wild. Also, I've never been that, I don't know, I'm not an angry person like that. I've never had an experience of being drunk and like, I wouldn't even think to go back to a place and break a window, right? Maybe I pee on the floor in a bathroom. Like, that sounds crass. I apologize. I should have given you like a warning. But that's my idea if I got treated real shitty or something in my head, maybe I pee on the bathroom floor, right? And even I feel bad about that right now. I don't think I've even done that. I don't even know why that came to my mind. But like, in terms of revenge, that I think that came to my mind because a friend of mine in my 20s, that was his mode of revenge. This is a stupid story. Yeah, trigger warning. We're gonna talk about pee. And it's just stupid things of when you're in 20s. But anyway, I don't know why we just found this like story hilarious when we were kids. Anyway, so we're in Atlantic City, which is like poor man's Las Vegas, the East Coast Las Vegas, and my friend meets a girl in the club and ends up going back to her room. But when you're in your 20s, nobody has their own room. So, of course, like her room is her and like 5 other girls. So apparently when he got back to the room, her other friends were there and they were just being super mean to him and like, talking all kinds of shit and like basically trying to get him out of there. So apparently he like went to the bathroom and like some of them had left some of their clothes on the floor and he peed on them as revenge. That's why that came to mind. I don't know why I'm sharing this story. That's a really just stupid story, but I think I'm sharing that story to let you know I'm not somebody who would pee on the floor just for revenge. But that's just what came to my mind. Anyway, we've gone off the rails here, folks. I've had too much coffee today, I think. But anyway, back to the real story, the serious story. Again, You know what kind of psychopath you have to be to do something like this? And I hope she gets the fucking book thrown at her. I think I was saying if she does get extradited back to Puerto Rico, something like this has, I believe it's 8 to 10 years possibly in jail. I hope she gets the maximum because obviously this is somebody who is just out of their fucking mind. And the fact that she fled Puerto Rico immediately, like she knew this shit was wrong. Because they said she actually had the Airbnb booked, I think for another week, but literally like fled right after this incident. So basically she just hopped on the next flight back to the States, thinking she was going to be able to get away with it. But I think stuff like this, man, you got to teach people a fucking lesson. So yeah, that's that. We've touched on a lot of weird things on today's podcast episode thus far. Okay, on a positive side of things, let's talk Bad Bunny. We'll do that for me. Hit the segment. All right, folks, we had to talk about this. I feel like if you are a listener of the show, you know I was going to have to highlight the fact that Bad Bunny dropped a brand new album this last weekend called Debí Tirar Más Fotos, or I should have taken more photos. And if you've been on the interwebs, by the way, I could be living in a bubble. I could just, Puerto Rico TikTok might just be a thing for me. And nobody else is talking about this. But I can't get away from people talking about this album and showing all kinds of emotions. I had a drive ahead of me on like Sunday night. So I was like, this is the beauty of Bad Bunny. Like literally the world stops when he drops a project. I don't want to be a prisoner of the moment. I don't want to be. I understand I have a bias as a Puerto Rican, but it really feels that way. When he drops something, it's like the world just fucking stops as far as like music goes, right? And so for me, I knew I had a drive ahead of me Sunday night, so like I waited. I didn't listen to the album early throughout the day. I was like, I'm going to wait till I get in the car. I have like an hour drive. I'm going to just be able to sit there and listen to it the whole way through. Let me tell you, I was ugly crying. I'm on the highway just ugly crying, going through all the range of emotions with this album. Because if you thought Un Verano Sin Ti was like this unapologetically Puerto Rican album, which it is, this one is even more Puerto Rican because it goes into the historical context. Like, Un Verano Sin Ti is a Puerto Rican album of, I feel like, a current representation, right, of like the current youth culture. Whereas this album, I think, encapsulates Puerto Rican culture and heritage, almost giving you this complete story as he touches on, or taps into classic genres like salsa, y plena, and of course reggaeton, but he goes all over kind of the spectrum here. There's live instrumentation, which, is the first time really introducing it, like horn sections and things like that, like classic salsero stuff, and vocals that, from other artists and things like that. Doesn't have many features on the album as far as like, current artists, just a couple. And he also speaks politically on what's happening on the island. He has a song where he talks about he doesn't want Puerto Rico to become another Hawaii, where the locals have been pushed out and can no longer afford to live on the island that is theirs. And just so much, I can't stress it enough, right? And I talked about this, I think, in the last episode when I was talking about legacy, so I won't, like, be a broken record. But, this means, I think, it's bigger than an album. And I said this on my Instagram, and if I could pat myself on the back, I think it's a good quote. Bad Bunny is so special as an artist because he can make music for both the revolution and the party, right? And that is, I think, the key. I think that's why the world stops, because he's able to tap into both giving you these hit records that you could sing along to and dance to, but he's brilliantly able to weave in the stuff that makes you stop and think and question and wake, sort of open your eyes to all that is happening, and get you sort of socially and politically activated as well, I think, and narrate these stories of the suffering and the resilience of our people. And that's what makes it so special. I think this album is like that perfected, essentially. And he talks about how this album is basically the sound that represents him best, right? Going back to his roots. And I'll include a link in it. I thought We Are Me Too did a great sort of, not review, but kind of discussion about it all. But it's just, I think that's what's so special, right? I think, because he mentioned this in an interview. He talked about the idea of how, like, and I think any of us can relate to this, the music that you grew up listening to that was like your parents' music, you kind of, wrote it off like, oh, that's old people music, right? And then as you get older, and as you maybe begin to find yourself a bit more and appreciate more of your culture, you start recognizing how special that music was and why it's been passed down from generation to generation, and just how incredible it is, right? And Bad Bunny talks about how a lot of the salsa he grew up listening to, via his parents, it was written off as like, oh, that's his grandparents or his parents' music. And now as he gets older, he appreciates how beautiful it is. And I think what he tapped into with this album, in the storytelling and just the music itself, I think it makes us all feel very seen. I've been trying to like really encapsulate what it is, right? And I know it's gonna, I'm sorry if this is too Puerto Rican, but I think for all of us, I think he tapped into, speaking as a Puerto Rican here, I think the beauty of this album, why it's so special and why we're going so crazy, aside from the fact that it's Bad Bunny, I think he tapped into so many emotions, and he tapped into our longing that we all have as human beings, but he tapped into our longing for wanting to feel a part of something. And I think he made us all feel a part of something with this album, where he tapped into the nostalgia of us as kids, tapped into currently where we are in life, tapped into our concern for the future of the island. And he sort of unified us all. And I think this is the beauty of music, and kind of why I feel like I've fallen in love with it all over again. Like when he, like, literally, there's a song on there where it's like, I started crying from the horn that got introduced, like the horn section. It just evoked an emotion in me. And now that song is the most streamed song in the world right now. Because it's that powerful, right? I wasn't alone in that, where it just made you feel something. It's like it's like the ancestors that live inside of all of us. It was all of a sudden they were just stirred up, and like you're overcome with this emotion of community and being connected. I think that's what it is. And like, that's special to be able to do that in art, to be able to convey that kind of emotion in a bunch of strangers and make them all feel unified and feeling a similar emotion. And that's what he managed to do with this project. I think that's why people are going so crazy with it, and that's why it's so fucking brilliant. And then he comments on tourism, right? And there's so many things with that. Like there's so many, and he even brilliantly like interweaves comparing a toxic relationship to potholes, which potholes are an issue in Puerto Rico. And so it's just like this. It's literally it's just hitting on fucking everything. And then on top of that, I've had friends who are like, don't speak a lick of Spanish, don't understand it, aren't Puerto Rican, aren't Latino, are white as can be, and are like, yo, this is like the album of the year already, and we're literally in the first week of 2025, and they feel something. That's how special it is. Like, you don't even have to understand it, and obviously understanding it and is a deeper connection than being Puerto Rican is an even deeper connection, right? But the fact that it's such a brilliant piece of work that those who don't understand anything about it from a historical context or a language context can still be moved by it and understand how special it is. Like that, to me, when I talk about this stuff, and I can't oversell it enough, it's like, wow, that is special. To be able to do that is sort of like puts you in this elite category of artistry that, few, if anyone, can ever really be able to tap into in that way. And that's what's beautiful about it. So that's my 2 cents on it. It's just a beautiful, beautiful thing. And again, I've been feeling this for a minute, the idea of some of these genres sort of coming back into prominence, like salsa and things like that, and even I'll leave it at this: the idea that Latin music in general is becoming far more diverse in the mainstream beyond just like reggaeton, right? Where you saw people like Peso Pluma with being able to break through with regional Mexican music, right? And now Raul Alejandro, had some salsa records. That's like kind of the whole vibe on his new project. Bad Bunny giving us salsa plena, all these different genres. He's doing like some housey stuff in it, right? And the idea even like Latin house on the electronic side, in general, like it's opening the door for this sort of showcase of the diversity of our community, that we're not just one thing. And it's opening the door for artists of all kinds, of all mediums, to be able to express themselves and not be trapped in a box of what it quote unquote means to be Latino, right? And that's always like my greater conversation in life, is like breaking through all of that. And I love what I'm seeing. And you have to give it up to him for being somebody who really helped break that door down. I mean, to me, and again, I can be biased, but like, and actually I've seen this, I've been like on the internet studying these pockets, like in Mexico City. I know there's just this amazing like artist culture of like all kinds of music, like electronic music made by Latinos. It's just like different than anything else. So they have like this gothic scene that's amazing, just like random shit that you wouldn't expect the quote unquote Latinos to be doing. For me, I'm fascinated by what's happening in Puerto Rico right now with like the next generation, where they have no boundaries in like fashion. They're killing it. And I've been seeing popping up on the island like these like electronic underground events like that are beyond just like the typical Latin stuff, and are genres of music that, when I was listening to it, years ago and getting into it, I was told I was listening to white music, right? And it's amazing to me now to sort of see these genres making their way or becoming popular and expanding the idea of what it means to be Latino. And like, obviously I've talked about historical context of like, first of all, house music was created by black people, and black and Latin people made it gigantic in places like New York. And Latin house was a thing in the 90s, especially in places like New York, where it was house music made by Latinos, and then eventually it got fucking, gentrified. And we believe the lie that it's white music or whatever. But like, I love the idea that all those barriers and like all that nonsense is sort of being washed away as a result of people like Bad Bunny refusing to have labels be put on them, and allowing their art to just speak for itself and challenging themselves to do something different each time, I think is what's helping break those barriers in so many ways. So I know I just went off on like a fucking TED talk, but just I think it's beautiful. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. With that said, we'll tie everything we talked about in a neat little bow in a segment we call Conclusion Stew.
Time for Conclusion Stew.
I feel like I say this every time, but I'm going to keep this very brief because I went off on a lot of tangents today. These wildfires happening in Los Angeles, it's hard to watch the footage, to hear the stories. I have a lot of friends who live in LA, especially because of the entertainment industry aspect. There's so many people I know who have moved to LA or live out there, and seeing them post about it in real time and all these, like, it's just, my heart hurts. I don't know what else to say. I feel helpless, and it's just a real tragedy to watch this happen, and to think an entire town in LA County is just wiped off the map, essentially, is just hard to wrap your brain around. Also, what's hard to wrap your brain around is the incoming president and the nonsense that he's putting out there. I don't need to get into it any deeper, but again, it's like the evidence is there. Like, everything is self-serving. They're not talking about doing anything to help you. They're rattling off bullshit and wasting time. on bullshit things like renaming the Gulf of Mexico. Ugh, it's fucking crazy. This tourist setting fire to those businesses in Puerto Rico. I mean, disgusting. I hope that she gets the book thrown at her. I don't like generalizing, but in my heart, it's my own trauma speaking. I can't help but feel like, dude, this is why we have a problem with tourism. This is why people are angry at white people in general and can't help but feel like white supremacy is very much still a real thing, because people like this go to other countries, think that they are superior to the place that they're visiting, and think that they can do whatever the fuck they want. And then when somebody tells their drunk ass that they need to get the fuck out of there, they then take it personally and retaliate on these people in a way they probably wouldn't have done anywhere else. I highly doubt this woman would have lit bars in St. Louis on fire. But because it's Puerto Rico, because she thinks that because she can get on the next flight out, there are going to be no consequences, she thought that was the best remedy. That was the best choice. And that is, white supremacy right there. White superiority complex, what the fuck you want to call it. Colonizer mindset. And that's why I hope that they extradite her ass back to the island and she gets the book thrown at her. On a positive note, again, this Bad Bunny album, I'm not just go listen to it. Look up the lyrics, watch videos of people breaking stuff down. I have a couple videos coming out on my Instagram that I'm doing with Pulso, who's an amazing Latin platform for content, breaking down a couple of the songs and the deeper meanings behind them. And but there's a lot of great content out there where people are showcasing why this is such a special piece of art that's been put out there into the world. And that's what it is. It's beyond just music. It's beyond an album, beyond hit records. This is just a piece of art that we as Latinos can stand on proudly. Puerto Ricans can, really get behind and just feel it in their heart and bring us all together, I think. So yeah, go check out the album if you haven't yet. With that said, have an amazing weekend. Good to be back here in 2025. First Thursday Trends of 2025. I'm losing my voice already. I gotta get some reps in to, get used to talking on this mic this often again. But yeah, I'll catch y'all on Tuesday with a brand new episode. Till then, stay safe and we'll talk soon. Peace.